it will require time. In fact, it will require more time now than it did before to enter UI UX as a skill professional.
Hello, everyone. Good day. Welcome back to the Girl Lead My STEM Careers Limited series. My name is Faith, your host. This is a program where we talk about careers in tech. We break them down to actually talk about what they mean, how you can get into them, and also begin to sort of demystify knowledge around them so you can drive growth and change in your community globally. Today, we're talking about UI UX, and we have an amazing guest with us, Damilare Sanusi. Now, before we get into Damilare, I'm going to read a bit of his bio to sort of situate us in the conversation. So Damilare is a design engineer focused on creating products around web infrastructure, builder tools, and daily consumer applications. He works at an intersection of product design, front-end engineering, and data-driven decision making, which means he doesn't just design interfaces. He helps teams reduce friction, simplify complexity, and turns ideas into relatable, scalable products. Now, he's worked in end-to-end on CAS. He's worked in education, fintech, and enterprise products. And he designs based on user behaviors and measurable outcomes, not guesswork. At his core, that is at the core of all this English I've just been reading, he loves building things that works, products people can trust, and teams that can maintain them. So welcome. Hi, Dami. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Faith. I'm good. Glad to be here. When you were just describing me just now, I was like, wow, who is this guy? He's so like it's like he's larger than life. Who is this guy?
Yeah, the one that said the bios. Yeah, I think sometimes, when people read our bios to us, it's like, oh wow, I never knew. Sounds nice. That person was smart. Well,
Yeah,
it is
so
you.
glad
It
to
is
be
you.
here.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm actually looking forward to this conversation. I'm super excited about it. We've done a bit of work together, so I think I should probably give some context as well. Damilare used to be part of the girly team. Was part of the girly team for I can't remember how many years. Tutored a couple of people, some of the boot camps that we did. Girl Lead 5.0, 4.0, I can't remember, but was tutor for UI UX for some of the programs. So it's really, really great to come together to talk about UI UX. So where do we want to start from? Right. I think it will be sort of important for you to just first of all tell us what you currently do, and then we can now get into UI UX specifically.
Okay, so once again, hello Faith. Hello everyone. I'm Damilare Sanusi, as Faith mentioned. I am a design engineer and currently I handle two different roles. Like, the Nigerians at the hustle. So I handle two different roles. I work as an operations manager at a company where I handle team management, I create the systems for operations for the team, and then I handle deliverables and check everybody, even my boss. So one of the things I'm happy about that job is that I am paid to pressure him. Yeah, one of the jobs I do, a studio in Lagos called Tola Studio. We also run a podcast about tech. And that's by the wayside. On the other side of the business, it's a boutique design studio where we handle engineering and processes. We supervise processes. We partner with startups and founders rather, to make sure things are good. On the other hand, I'm a design engineer, as you mentioned. So that's what I do for myself.
Okay, that's great. And I know that you've done over the years, like your bio mentioned, you've done UI UX in education, in fintech, other aspects as well. So let's sort of explore some of the things that you have done in the past in UI UX. Let's say your most recent role in UI UX. What was that like? What did you do? What did you have to do?
My most recent role in UI UX, that would be last year. I was the technical lead on the team, but I also doubled as the UI UX guy on the team before another person joined. So I handled product design, documentation, discovery, scope management for all products to make sure that everything we did had a specific scope, deliverables, and then the design followed the UX practices. It was in line with what the users wanted. So those were the kind of I did in line of UI UX for the team. So I designed a few products and ensured that they went into shipping. I also touched the engineering aspect of it, where I helped build out some of the things designs on the front end for the team. So it was an interesting experience. Because I think that was where I really started like rebuilding again. At the point I really niched into design. But at that role, I was able to like embody both parts of the process, the design and the engineering together.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually good. That's true. Because I think you used to do engineering before you went into design, if I remember correctly. So
Yeah.
that, okay. Now, time to geek out. What exactly is UI UX design? Now, you need to explain it to me like I am, how old am I? I'm 17 years old and I am thinking of going to design. But I don't know anything. You see, all those scope English you just spoke, I don't know anything at all. So break it down for me. What exactly is UI UX design?
Okay, okay. So I think before we talk about what exactly UI UX design is, we would have to do a bit of pre-game. That's what I'll use. I'll use pre-game
Okay.
to explain it about design. So what is design specifically? But a lot of
Yeah.
people when they hear design, it decorations like paintings, making things look cute and good and all that. So I think that's the stereotypical idea of design a lot of people have. To clarify, design is the idea of materializing concepts or materializing ideas. You have an idea in your head, you want to bring it out. That whole process is a process of design. You are making the ideas in your head tangible objects that people can interact with, observe, and review. So that is what a design is. And with that definition, you'd understand that design goes just beyond making things look good, making things look cute. It's also making things functional, making things work. So like, yeah, that's why you have design in engineering, design in architecture. That's all design. So putting it now into digital design, that's where we have the different fields like graphic design, UI UX design, service design, and all that. But now,
Yeah.
as you from your question earlier, we're talking about UI UX design. So UX design, first of all, the name UI and UX, those are acronyms. So UI means user interface design and UX means user experience design. So user interface design is the design of mediums of interaction. Again, let me break that down to um when you are designing the objects you interact with, the objects you touch, the objects you feel, what you
The
see.
object you interact with digitally.
Yes, digitally. Yes,
Okay.
digitally. Yeah. So in this case, you are designing the look of the application, the colors, the typography, that's the text, the shape, or that's when you're looking at UI design. Those are the parts of the product or the application that you can see, you can
Okay.
interact with and all that. Then UX design is user experience design. It's more about the thinking, the psychology. It's you're designing for experiences. If you want, how do you want your users to feel? What do you want them to think? How do you want them? Do you want them comfortable? Do you want them apprehensive? Do you want them relaxed? Do you want them passive? Those are things
Okay.
that happen in the user's head. So yeah, designing with those things in mind. That is user experience. You're designing for feelings and thinking. So
Mm.
that's what your UX design is. All this when you're designing for digital products, applications, software, websites.
Okay, that makes sense. So one, I'm designing for functionality, what it looks like, and two, I'm designing for how it feels like. So with
Exactly.
digital experiences, there is, and it's so funny because it's so interesting because I had never actually thought about, first of all, fundamentally design. And that was a great foundation to actually lay because there is design everywhere around you. Houses need designs, road, even urban planning. I think a large part of all the urban planning is designing where parks go, where car parks go, where buildings go, where the drainages go. And then if you take all that and then you now move into the digital world, there's a conversation of, okay, it's a world and every world needs design. So how do we design this in such a way that when people come here, there's functionality. They can go from page A to page B to page C to page D. And what is the experience we want them to be having as they move from page A, B, C, D? So that's a good
Yeah.
place to start. Now, can someone do UI without doing UX?
Yes, it's very possible to do UI without UX, but the truth is, if you don't understand the feeling of
Yeah.
it, you won't be a good UI designer.
Okay.
So let me break it down like this, or let me explain this way. So usually when you start out in design, digital design or product design, we
Yes.
learn. So I'm training a new term now, product design. Let me quickly just explain that. So product design is basically like UX design. You're not doing it for a business or a product. So that's where you just have the term product design. It's more of a professional term than it is
Okay.
a plane of skill. So
Okay.
that's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. So, when you enter the profession of product design, you
Okay.
actually learn UI and UX design.
Okay.
So, how people specializing is on the higher levels when they are niching, and the necessity to niche comes when the company is extremely large. You are looking at FANG companies like Google, Amazon, Meta,
Yeah.
Twitter, those kind of companies. That's when you are looking at companies that where they require niche skills like just UI design or just UX design.
Yeah.
But generally, you learn it all them together. The reason for which brings me back to my former point. So yes, it's possible to be just a UI designer, but if you
Okay.
don't understand UX or if you don't have the thinking of UX in your head, you won't be a great UI designer because you can make the most beautiful things that mean nothing to your user if you don't understand the way they think, the way they feel, the way they behave. Yeah. So that's why.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. Like if you create a shopping site and it's so amazing, the clothes are all there. Like buy shoes, I buy shoes. You buy shoes and everything looks glamorous. But if I can't see, for example, easily where I can scroll to my size, there's gonna be a problem. Or if I can't
Yeah.
see where I can probably what's it called? That's a specific product. Like I want to buy Puma or I want to buy New Balance. I want to be able to sort of niche down for lack of better terms. There is a problem. So your products look nice and good, but I can't see where to move from page one to page two to page three. Or let's say I can see where to move from page one to page two to page three, but your products are not, for lack of better terms, given. Or they are not put in a way that brings that. Because, for example, it's the same way when people get on social media sites like Instagram, the thing that makes them want to stay there for God knows how many hours. It's the same thing that shopping sites are trying to incite, where they get you on there and they want you to live with some. If you don't
Yeah.
create that experience for users, but you create the basic functionality, you have lost. So I definitely see why it's fundamental that you understand both, except in cases where there is the assurance that there's somebody else who's working on the project who understands UI while you understand UX or vice versa. Okay, that's
Exactly.
helpful. Now, you've explained these two. So now let's go into principles of digital design when it comes to UI UX. If I
Yeah.
am, let's say, going into UI UX and I want to understand how to do it better, what are some of the principles or elements, foundational elements, two or three of each? Now, some might cross over, so some might be relevant to both UI and UX, but have a distinct feeling that when you want to do UI, these are the things that are important, and when you want to do UX, these are the things you need to look out for. So, what does that look like?
So when I taught a girl lead and some other places where I handled UI UX trainings, I
Yeah,
usually started with design. That's what is design. Then I explained all the things I've explained so far. What is
yeah,
design? UI UX is product design. And then the next thing, surprisingly, because everyone expected would hit the tool instantly, Figma, and start pushing the
yeah,
pixels and all. But there is always comes as a shock to when I said that there's still more studying to do. And that's where we have things like the principles of design you mentioned. So they are very important because if you don't understand them, you don't understand what you are doing.
yeah,
You might replicate other people's designs, but you don't understand the discipline, the skill involved in it. So
yeah,
that's why these
yeah,
principles are important. So some of the principles we have shape, we have balance, we have white space. So these are just some of the things that you have to think about when you are designing. So for example, balance. If you look at some structures now, even not just digital products now, if you look at buildings outside, if you see a
yeah,
building where it feels like, for example, the Leaning Tower of Pisa now, it's in Italy. I'm sure.
yeah,
Have you heard of it? So the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So you look at that structure and you think, how is it still standing? What exactly is still like? Why hasn't it like toppled over fully? Now that's an example of balancing design manipulated. So it's intentionally leaning. Or
Okay.
let's take for example, you see a tall skyscraper, but it's leaning slightly like the Tower of Pisa. Maybe not as extreme as that, just leaning slightly like that. Would you feel safe entering that building?
I mean, for much as no way, no.
Exactly. So that is something that people have to put, like designers have to put in mind when they are thinking of designing. They have to think of balance, the structural balance of
Okay.
things.
Okay.
Same way for products. If you look at the way information is structured on a page, things on the left, colors on the right, like even using things like contrast or emphasis. These are principles now at play. Contrast, making things look extremely different from each other. Emphasis, making things more significant than others. So use that to balance where some things are more noticeable than others. There is balance mentally, cognitive balance in your head when you look at things and you think, okay, this is structurally balanced when you look at a digital app. So those are some of the things we play around with when we think about design. There's also the elements of design. This is different from the principles of design. So the elements of design are the things that combine together to make up a design. For example, we have line, we have space, we have typography, we have color. So we have shapes. So these are some of the things that come together that we arrange and modify all on a given canvas to create designs. If you notice the things I mentioned now, if you look at every digital app, it has one or more of these things. It has color, it has typography, it has space, it has lines, it has shapes. So these are some of the things we combine together to make sure a design looks good or it works functionally for the user. And then we now have the laws of UX, which is another discuss. So the laws of UX are just cognitive laws that you have to keep in mind that determine or describe user behavior when they're interacting with products. For example, Jacob's law, which is one of my very fond laws, it says users go for products that are familiar with other products. So the reason for this is if you make something that stands out too much, for example, you make a fintech app and it's too different from what users already know how to interact with, you most likely have very little users on your platform compared to someone that makes something that's already been tried, tested, and popular with the users. For example, mobile apps now. So in the era of mobile apps where the navigation is at the bottom. So imagine you open Uber, for example, and you want to order a ride and then the navigation is on the right hand side and down on the screen, just hanging on the right hand side of the screen. It's not what you are used to. It's an inconvenience to use. It becomes a hassle because you're a certain pattern of operation. Human beings are creatures of habits. They like to do things a specific way. The brain doesn't like change. We like things that repeat in routine.
Right.
Yeah. When you start making big changes without confirming that this is the best thing for the user, you end up discouraging the user from interacting with it or using that product. And even in cases where that can be the best thing for the user, like this is what the user needs, they will still push back because human beings are creatures of habits.
Obviously. When you say, I want to clarify something. When you say typography, I'm assuming that means text, right?
Yes,
So like text
typography is
font,
body of
where how
text.
it's placed. Okay, body of text. Okay, that's great. So you mentioned something really interesting. First of all, I think I saw Jacob's law and a couple of other laws when I was kind of like just reading a bit on UI UX design, and I found that really interesting. That people are much more likely to be drawn to what it is they already know, what already feels familiar. So people tend to sort of build on that. And I think I see that even in, for example, learning course platforms. There are two of the most popular platforms in the world that are in my head. And I can consciously just scroll through and I can mentally see how they look alike. And even some social media platforms as well have this sort of, in a way, sound similar. And so the thing of icons, as you're saying, now just imagine if I open an app and they had, let's say, 6 different icons and they were all scattered around the page, like probably like balloons, how I'm less likely to come back to that place again. But
Exactly.
that brings to mind the question of user research, because it feels or sounds like you would only know these things, or rather only know the foundations of familiarity of already existing systems to build on, if you'd first of all do research on what's existing in the market and then also what your customers want. So I don't know what user research falls under, where it is, who does it. But I think it would be great if you could sort of explain that in detail, what that looks like, and how that process of UI UX design.
Okay, thanks. Lovely question. So the next thing I usually discuss in class is design thinking.
Okay.
So what is design thinking? Design thinking is the set of steps involved in designing a product. I believe there are six, if I can write them off the top of my head, right? I believe there are six steps you follow to design your product. The first one is empathy. And what's empathy? Empathy is basically putting yourself in your user's shoes, understanding their and all that. So now you can't always empathize with your users per se, because, for example, assuming you're a UX designer now, you are a Nigerian who was born in Nigeria and you lived most of your life so far in Nigeria. How would you, and then suddenly you work remotely, you're employed by a company in the US or in Europe. How do you empathize with a person from a very different culture from your own who has lived a very different life? So empathy, while it's the keyword here, it's not the sole description of the action here. So when we mean empathy, we also mean research, studying. So you study your user. The ways you do that are you Google them, you Google their culture, their behaviors, their preferences, the products they are familiar with, and then you understand, okay, this is what they like, this is what they don't like. And this is very interesting because when I was still like researching, like when I was still exploring things about design, I realized that the kind of things people in East Asia enjoyed about their products were very different from things we as Africans enjoyed about products, especially because our design tastes in terms of digital design is mostly Western influence. So, for example, those in East Asia, they enjoy more cluttered spaces. And the way we say, okay, our culture says red is a danger color, red is the color of alertness or warning. It's the same way in Asia. I think China, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it red is a color of good luck. It's a color of good fortune. So they like it. So those are things that does show how different cultures perceive different things. So you can't use like a negative warning, in East Asia. So that's one thing I learned about UX user research now, and that's under empathy. So that's the first stage of the design thinking process. The next stage is problem definition. When you define the problem, it's still these two stages involve a lot of documentation. You aren't really doing any pixel pushing or designing in this stage. In these two stages, you are just documenting, researching, documenting. So you study the user, you understood their pain points, you understood their behavior, you define your users, you document their problems, you document their habits, their behaviors, all that. Yeah. And then you can now go into ideation, which is the third stage of design thinking. So in ideation, you start brainstorming, okay, how do I solve their problems? How do I solve their pain points? What do I do to improve their process to make things easier for them? Things like that. So those are, that's the ideation stage. And after the ideation, you have prototyping, where you now make models of your ideas. You've thought of a few good ideas. You want to now test them out. Yeah. You make prototypes people can interact with and touch and feel and use. And then which leads us to the next stage, which is testing. So where people take your prototypes, test them, use them, and then leads you to the final stage, feedback. So in feedback, they give you feedback and you know, okay, what needs to change, what needs to improve, or if you're ready to ship, things like that. So that's the entire design thinking process, and it encompasses everything you need to know from start to finish you need to do rather from start to finish about for designing a product. So that's how we handle it. So to answer your question, research comes at the beginning, but it doesn't just stay at the beginning. It can pop up at different points in the process.
You know, many things that come into my head. One is how design thinking, which is this, what part of what you've explained, was now was taken as a process and put also in business management and strategy, because it's something, it was a process that was built around the user. I mean, in business, they
Yeah.
probably call it customer, partner, client, whatever it is. But fundamentally, the idea of building around the person that you're building it for, because you first of all start
Yeah.
from user research. So what does this person want? And it's so interesting that you explain the cultural differences, because we are human beings. We are beings of nature, and our natures are nurtured by the environment in which we exist in and which we grow up in. For example, I think I've spoken about this with a couple of people, how if you living in Nigeria, first of all, is different from living in just as close as Ghana or Benin Republic. And so if you are building a product for people who are specifically in Nigeria, you cannot use, and you are a Beninois, you can't use the mindset of your country to build for people who are in Nigeria. It's two different
Exactly.
extremes. So if you are building for Asians, it's going to be very different from when you are building from people from South America, or you are building from people who are Northern African as well. And so when you now take that and spend a lot of time in learning them, that first part, you are already centering them, putting them at the center of it all. And so it's thinking constantly about the user. Okay, if this person, if we're building for people who, back to the shoes, I don't know why I'm stuck on shoes today. But anyways, we are building for people who want shoes, who like this specific kind of shoe. And what is their experience? What is the experience we want them to have? What's the bottleneck that this partner has said they've been having with their product? How can we fix that? And things like that. And the process, I'm so happy you actually explained the process, because I was actually going to ask, okay, and next what happens? Next what happens? And is this thing of constantly testing and improving and then showing to say, okay, this is what I think works. And then you test it in the market and it's like, oh, that doesn't work. Okay, maybe that doesn't work because of XYZ. I'm pulling it back to make little tweaks and here and there and then seeing what works. That thinking has shifted a lot of ways that people do things before. Because before, people would do things large and about based on a lot of analytical thinking with little or no input from the customers or from the market, and then launch it and they realize this don't work. And then the whole thing has scattered and you have to go back to the drawing board again. But testing it out really, really early gives you a sense of what people are interested in. Okay, that's really helpful. Let's now think about colors. First of all, that even reminds me, I'm happy you said that there's a lot of documentation in UI UX. Because when people hear and think of UI UX, they only see Figma. They don't know that, my dear, MS Doc is inside your
They're honestly
PowerPoint.
shocked when I start. My students are when we start with documentation and they're like, "What's going on?" I thought we're supposed to be creating graphics or something, and I'm
No,
like,
no, no, no.
you,
MS Doc is inside UI UX. PowerPoint
that is
is
it
inside UI UX. Before you
exactly.
even it's, I never knew that. Or maybe I don't know if I knew that. I never thought of that. But that is actually an interesting thing to pinpoint, because if we're talking about this for early career people and also people who are in secondary school, the ability to do research, then document your research, then communicate your research. Because by the time, so for example, I am a partner and I come to Damilare and I say, I sell shoes again and I'm having this problem with my users on my platform. Fix it. I don't even give you the number. Maybe I give you customer data, some limited customer data and stuff like that. You then go and then you come up with an idea that is very different from what we have. You're going to have to prove to me why you think that idea works. You're going to have to put that
Exactly.
idea in PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint has got to look nice without saying, because people don't look at boring looking PowerPoints. And so you see the connection and the ability to communicate and convince people. It's so strange, because I think maybe you are not the person who is communicating and convincing. Maybe it's the product manager. But somehow in all this, UI UX design is not just Figma. I really, really want to drum that in, because people think that it's not just Figma. Is research, communication, etc. etc. All right, let's go to colors. Now, we said colors. I said colors because I wanted us to talk about colors, because I think it's such an interesting thing and it's something we don't pay attention to a lot. And it's something that you probably never hear people talk about. The first time somebody spoke about colors was Girl Lead 5.0 closing event, where the girls on the women on the program had done their different projects and they were showing their group to say, oh, this is what we came up with. And Alice, the facilitator on UI UX, mentioned colors. And she said something about, and I was like, I have never heard in my life except when you're putting clothes together to where I go out. Somebody talk about colors. So how important is colors in UI UX? What is sort of like thinking when it comes to colors in the field?
Well, very lovely questions. Colors. This is a very long conversation, and it's very interesting for me because when a lot of people hear about colors, they just think about, okay, isn't it just red? Isn't it just blue? Let's just
Yeah.
slap some pink on it. Like when they're thinking of design. Because when you think about people now, people aren't just people. They are cultures, that their behaviors, that their
Yeah.
beliefs, things like that.
Yeah.
And colors are important in all these things we mentioned. For example,
Yeah.
the traffic lights, you have red, yellow, green. Those are colors that govern whether you move or not. And it's
Yeah.
just colors. So yeah, so
Mm.
colors are very important when it comes to design. The perception of colors rather is very psychological. And it isn't a new concept. It's something that's been there since, I would say, even like since the cavemen. It's colors
Yeah.
have always played a very strong role in how we perceive the world, how we behave
Yeah.
towards the world.
Yeah.
So, for example, like we mentioned earlier, for those of us in Africa, those of us in the West, when we see red, we think alertness, we think danger sometimes, but generally we
Yeah.
think life, alertness, danger. So now, what's the reason for this? What do you think is the reason? Do you have any idea?
But I think I can say something like it's the you know it's the emotion, or rather the feeling it evokes when we look at it. But I don't think that
Yeah.
is one.
No, you're onto something, but the question is, why does it invoke that feeling?
Is it because we've been told, or it's
Um,
cultural translation of what it is that we are seeing?
So you're close, but to put it this way now, yeah, so these are inherited beliefs. So in some ways, this has been passed down from parent to child so much that it's now instinctual. It's no more learned. It's no more
Yeah.
passed down verbally or orally or educated. It's now
Yeah.
biological in the body to be wary of these colors or to perceive these colors in a certain way. That's why
Okay.
sometimes you say, okay, I have this and I don't know why. I just have this feeling, like that kind of thing for colors. For red specifically, it's blood. Yeah. So when you see blood, you think life. When you see blood
Yeah.
or when you are bleeding, your brain tells you you are in danger.
Danger.
Your brain floods you with pain to know, okay, there is a problem. So that's one way we observed colors back then, and one way we evolved to perceive that color. Now, yellow, another interesting color. People say yellow invokes excitement, involves liveliness,
Yeah.
happiness. Now, why do you think that is?
The sun.
Exactly. So now let me even take this far back to the caveman era. They only had fire going for them at some points, and even before fire, all they had was the sun. The night was dark. It was
Yeah.
dangerous. It was worrisome. They were yeah, human beings were good hunters, but there were more scary things in the dark that they couldn't see hunting them. And then a certain point, this giant yellow ball just pops up in the sky, and then they can see everything. They can find
Everything.
food. They are protected. They can live their lives happily. That's the sun. And that's how instinctually yellow became this lively color for us, this color of excitement, this color of happiness. When you're awake, you eat. So yellow, the color
Yeah.
that increases your appetite. So
Yeah.
if you that's a fun example for you like using class is Mr. Biggs. They think they redesigned from what I can tell, but then OG Mr. Biggs back then it was the colors then.
Abby? Yeah.
Exactly. And it was very intentional on their parts. They wanted to make
Perfect.
sure people are hungry. People want to
Um,
eat. Like, even if two of us are driving to Mr. Biggs and you're the only one with cravings, once two of us enter, my cravings should
it's,
start.
it becomes two. From one, it becomes two. Okay. I think
Yeah.
it's so interesting. I have never thought of the source of where our definition or of colors or understanding of colors come from. And so I'm thinking from the way you explain, I mean, your ability to go all the way back to the very, very beginning. It feels like that's a conversation people have when they are thinking of colors to use in their design, because they are thinking of what emotions, again, to UX, that they want to evoke from people when they have experiences on this platform. Yeah. We can go on and on, but they warned me
So,
that I should.
well, I would like to chip this in quickly. One thing I have to note, and one thing I learned quite recently, thanks to my journey in design was colors are so prone to change the same way culture can change and evolve.
Yeah.
So, for example, pink. Now we think pink is the girly color, the feminine color, Barbie, all that. Now,
Yeah.
but there was it when pink was the manly color. It was the color of men.
Are
Now,
you
why
serious?
was this? So yes, so back then there
What?
was a point where like men wore red, men were signified with red, and women were signified with blue. Now, at this point, because they felt red was the color of life, the color of agility, the color of excitement,
Oh,
animation. Red was the color of the people that had the most energy. In that case, they believed it was men.
I'm actually seeing like, so it was a symbol of wealth and power in the 18th century. In the 1700s, European men, especially aristocrats, frequently wore pink. Although it was considered softer, yes, it was still powerful. And it was also because it
Yes.
was also a version of, I'm like, what? Pink? Wow.
Yes.
You know, that's
It's
actually a
not
good
that.
point. That's actually a good point because now I see us moving into, you know, there's the 12 standard colors.
Yeah.
I see us moving from those 12 colors into the in-betweens, for lack of better terms. So
Yeah.
nudes,
Mhm.
different shades of like dusty pink. There's one color somebody said the
Yeah.
other office the other day. I was like, what is that? Turquoise, sea blue, sea green, like just we are,
Soft, low saturation, not necessarily
yeah.
cool, but they're not very
They're not
vibrant. They're just,
very, yeah, they're just there. And people are, it's quite interesting to see it. And because, I mean, you have to, like, what color is that? It's not red, orange, green, brown. You can see it comes from brown, but you won't call it brown. It
yeah.
probably nude or something like that. You can see it comes from green, but you won't call it, it's not green. You know that that thing is not green, but it look like it's the family of green. But you don't, I wonder why that is, but let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's come back out and go somewhere else. But that was actually very interesting. I never knew that. Wow, I never knew that. Okay. So we said we're going to explore parallels. There was a debate there's current, I don't know if it's still current. You are the one that can explain that. But the debate around creativity or process in UI UX. And actually, after we spoke about it the other day, I was actually thinking because there's a lot of creativity that comes and needs to sort of come up from within you as you're doing this work, but there's also the need for process. So in my head, I don't know where that argument got to, but in my head, I'll be thinking UI UX is a career that needs both to work hand in hand. But walk me through exactly why there was that conversation. What personally you think is important to build a successful career or to kind of like do this and do this well?
Yeah. Whenever I see that debate, sometimes it just cracks me up. When I entered design from front-end engineering. So it was similar, just different mediums, completely different. The thinking was different too, but it was easy for me to transition because things were still visual for me. So, but then a lot of other people came from graphic design backgrounds, poster design, typography designs, things like that into UI UX design. So they're more graphical inclined, but someone like me would be more inclined. So then my early stages, when people say, oh, I say, okay, what do you do? And they say UI UX design or product design. And they'll be like, okay, please explain that. And then I explain it and they say, oh, graphics design. I'm like, no, we don't do that. It was, no, it was honestly. I didn't know better then, honestly, but now I have seen the light. So I would say the argument, the debate comes from a place of, in some cases, ego, in some places, ignorance. So ego, because a process-driven designer is coming from our perspective, why are you reducing me to a graphic designer? And I don't really know about those in the West, but in Nigeria, where we had people that were doing learn graphic design for 2.5, or I'll do this graphic for you for 5K. And
Yeah,
it felt like they were degrading the profession.
you
So
wanted to.
I didn't
Yeah,
even understand that real graphic designers, the proper graphic designers were doing great, like doing really amazing stuff out there,
yeah.
even better, like in some cases better than what UX designers were doing. So I just use that whole 5K graphic designers to 5 graphic designers to judge the space. And I said, this is not us. It came from a place of ego, and I said, okay, why are you reducing this entire field to just graphics, like to just creativity, rainbows and sunshine. Like there is process, there is steps, there's thinking, there's research, there's documentation involved. Why reducing it to just fancy pictures? So I was right to be upset depending on who said it was just graphic design. But at the same time, it also came from a place of ego. Now, from the place of ignorance, I would say people who said UX is just graphic design, they didn't understand all these other things I mentioned that
Yeah.
went in hand with
Yeah.
UI UX,
Yeah.
product design. So they felt it was just pushing pixels, making things
Yes.
look pretty. So they never considered the extra thinking involved in the process. So I think those were the two main drivers of the argument. There might be other reasons that I didn't account for, but from what I observed about myself and the space at large, those were the two main reasons. Now, to answer my current answer after growing up, we thank God for growth. so, after maturing in this space, I would say my current answer will be it's both. In fact, now the industry rewards you more for being creative. The process is set in stone to a certain extent. Like the process has been replicated so much, it's set in stone. So now, if you aren't creative enough to stand out from everyone else that can do the process,
Yes.
you aren't discovered, you aren't seen. So it's both, and they have their places to shine. So creativity makes your work look meaningful, be attractive. Now, this is just me saying visual creativity, not necessarily even like creativity in process, because creativity in process also improves your way of thinking outside the box, finding innovative way to solve certain user problems, things like that. That also exists in terms of creativity. And then process helps you tame your creativity, because if you leave your creativity, it just runs wild. Like that's why we say you can think of ideas from now till next year. As long as you aren't building on them, moving them, pushing on them, you haven't done anything. You're just a creative thinker. Exactly. So I would say it's both. That's my answer.
I think that's actually helpful because creativity needs a bucket sometimes to sit in. Ideas need a bucket to sit in the process. However, the process needs a bucket to sort of emerge or to show up. Process is leading to what? Is the refinement of the design towards an outcome. However, there needs to be something into the process. So the two of them sort of need each other. Okay. I have more questions and I'm looking at this our very wonderful time. How do you sustain, there's the thing of how you sustain the creativity, because we are coming to this age of AI where it's everywhere. You and I spoke about it the other day. You're telling me how you can build a website. There are like literally, I think Lovable app is one of them. I'm not sure if you can build a few website Lovable, but there's amazing things you can do with platforms like that. And there is now this increasingly fight to retain your relevance in the market and to still show, hey, I can deliver XYZ. So with that in mind, how do you sustain your creativity as a professional? Like, how would you encourage people who are just starting out? What do they need to do to sustain that creativity, to build it, sustain it, whichever one?
So for creativity, I would say the easiest thing you can do to remain creative is to remain creative. It sounds funny. So basically, it's just like exercising. So I'll use working out because I started working out like last year or 2 years ago, and I got to understand something. When I started working out, I started looking more toned, muscular, bigger. And when I stopped, I shrunk back.
Okay.
Like I said, looking thinner. So it's the same thing with creativity. It's just like working out, but it's your brain. Because whether we like it or not, the brain is a muscle. The more you exercise the brain in in the areas of creativity, the more creative you will be. So you wake up every day, you commit a certain amount of time to doing something creative, like thinking up something, working on something. Those things keep the creative pathways in your brain alive. They keep them active. So let me give another fun instance. So I was working a job. This was one of my previous jobs at 2023, that period. And at a point, I got a burned out. And the reason was I just left the whole creative thing in one corner and just followed process. I still found ways to make the product look good, but I just followed process for that. I could also say, okay, this is supposed to be round, this is supposed to be shaped, this is supposed to be bold, all we possess. We need to exercise any extra creativity to do that. I realized that by the time I left that job, I was sort of like blocked. I couldn't start like creating amazing stuff again. I had to now relearn, practice, study again. And that's how I could rebuild my creative pathways, my creative mind. So constantly thinking up, constantly creating, and then constantly exposing yourself to things that would help you, like, to excite your brain, excite these pathways in your brain. Looking at new things, things that will make you think, okay, how will I recreate this? Like, you could even see a tree outside and say, okay, how do I interpret this as a product? How do I add the elements of this nature, of this natural occurring thing into my design to make my design have this vibe of nature, of this tree, of greenery. So things like that, those are the kind of things that keep your creative muscles alive.
Stretching. It feels like there is a thing of sustaining a certain level of curiosity to be able to do this. Because when you sort of get bogged down into this is what I do every day, this is the process, like you said, when you get burnt out, you lose this just general hunger to sort of understand how things work, what's happening out there, because you don't want to sort of look up and look out. You're just in your stuff. But it's in looking up and looking out that by the time you get down into your stuff, you are now able to do better, give better, develop better, and your outputs are more refined. And I think it's quite hard because I think there is limited time when you think of, practical things. So for example, sustaining your creativity sometimes looks like reading, looks like watching stuff, looks like listening to stuff. That's power, that's data for people who have much more limited resources. To an extent, is they kind of ask the question of, it's quite hard. But then, like you said, it's as simple as a tree. Like, your ability to just leave your mind open to be able to look around you and see the connectivity within it. Like, you don't have to have a certain level of resources to be able to maintain creativity and curiosity in your life. There's a thing of looking up around you and seeing what you can deal with and using that. I think being able to even find opportunities in limited resources is the first sign of creativity. So yeah, that's very helpful. Practice, study, expose yourself, train that muscle, keep on training that muscle. Also surrounding yourself with people who are in that journey but in different spheres can also be helpful. Damilare, how does one get into UI?
How does one get into UI UX? So there are a lot of materials available. There's a lot of classes, there's a lot of materials on YouTube, there's a lot of bootcamps. So specifically, do you mean where do they get started from? What do they start studying? Do you mean that, or what exactly do you mean?
That's actually a very good question for me. I'm not sure. So let's say, why did you get into UI UX? Because I remember you studied computer science in Unipen. And I think even in undergrad, you started doing front-end engineering. I'm very sure that if I asked you, say by that time you thought you were to go do front-end engineering for the rest of your life, or somehow here we are, many years talking about UI UX and operations. So how did you get into UI UX and what made you stay?
So my reason was very economical. Funny enough, I didn't even start in front-end engineering. I started in data science. I learned data science. Yeah, so honestly, I stayed there. Honestly, engineer, machine learning, I could take course on now.
Like, okay, go on, continue.
Economics.
You are. Let's go. Please continue.
So I started in data science originally, but I realized early on that I wasn't going to get like the running funds I needed from here, and I needed running funds. So
you know that I cannot upload this. I think you are telling me that it's so easy. Please, we don't. This is not how we take our dearly though. Please continue.
So I realized that on a junior level, data science wouldn't reward me the way I wanted to be rewarded.
Okay.
I transitioned into front-end engineering because I wanted more immediate returns on my learning. So
there's a question coming out from that, but go on.
No problem. So I wanted more immediate returns on my learning, and I was actively doing front-end. So in the process of doing front-end, we learned about this cool new tool called Figma, and we started playing around with it because we said, okay, instead of just going straight to code and like creating the UI there. Let's draft it out in Figma, see what it looks like. Make sure we've settled in Figma, and then we can now build it out in code.
Okay.
So that was the thinking behind me picking up Figma at all.
Okay.
By this time, I learned Figma. I was dabbling in Figma, but I wasn't even a designer. I was just like a front-end guy who could use Figma to make my UI. They were very crappy then, by the way. So I did this for a while and I started getting better and better and better. My friend was like, "Oh, guy, this is good. This is awesome." And I just started getting better and better at it. I was still actively doing front end and I was pairing Figma with it until I met another person, a friend of mine, Navi. Yeah, he was also in Girl Lead at the time. Yeah. So he now explained UI UX to me. He said he was a product designer. I was like, UI UX designer, product designer. I was like, So what do you guys do? And then he explained it. So I researched it and I was like, oh wow. So that's what this is. And I said, okay, fine. I go ahead and join body. I added it to front end and I just claimed, okay, I do front end, I do UI UX, and I kept on going. After a while, a few of my older friends started giving me advice because they said that boxing me was a problem, and as I was progressing, niching was important. The industry as I then favored niching, it encouraged niching, so I couldn't really stay like pairing both of them.
Yes.
And another issue was because I was pairing both of them, I was moving slower because I was trying to carry both skills along at the same time.
Yeah.
So I eventually said, okay, which would favor me more? Like what do I enjoy doing? What will favor me more? What was more economical? Yes, because that's a very important question to ask. So I looked at things and I said, I enjoy front end, but UI UX is easier. It's something I enjoyed doing more than front end. Front end is also interesting to me, but I enjoyed UI more. So I stuck with it and my interest started increasing and it felt more natural to me. The minute I even dropped front end, it didn't feel like I dropped anything. It just felt like that was a natural thing to do. So I just continued in design. I eventually got a job solely in design and just continued from there. Front-end knowledge and some data knowledge still came in from time to time to help me get the job done, but the job was design. So that was how it was until recently.
I think first of all, I like the fact that you were just honest enough to say money was involved. I was thinking about it though. I'm not even going to lie about it. Because the reality is a lot of people, that's what they're using to make their decisions is money. And it's not something to judge people for because the economy we are in, the life we're in, people pick 3 jobs, not because they like working money to night. It's because they need money to pay their bills. But in hindsight, do you think that making that decision based on financial incentives was a good one? And do you think it costs you? So remember you and I spoke about burnouts and knowing where to get your hands off. One of the things that I believe it costs us sometimes when we are thinking of the financial factor is we don't know when to say no. And then we get burnt out quickly because we are strangling 2 or 3 things at the same time.
Okay. To recap your question to make sure I understand it, would I have done things differently knowing what I know now and how things have turned out now? Honestly, no, I won't.
Okay.
Because the truth was I acted with the information I had at the time.
Yes.
And that was what the industry demanded of me at the time.
Okay.
Now the industry demands something different from me. So I am changing along with the industry. In fact, I would say my regret was not changing fast enough, not moving fast enough. Yes, that would be my regrets. But the choices I made then, I think they were made based on the situation at the time. And for years, realistically speaking, finances do matter, but at the same time, time matters too. Data science was interesting, but when I started working in front end, I wasn't being paid immediately. Like it's not like the day the first job in front end that paid me good money, but like it was fun. It was like I liked the fact that I did this and then it popped up on the screen and I could see its work. That was interesting. But yes, the fact that I knew I would get money sooner was a good motivator. I would not.
God, I definitely think. God.
So yeah, I would say no regrets on that. No regrets on that at all.
Yeah, I think it's a healthy push to people, actually, young people. So you're starting out, you want to make money now. We all want to make money now. But there's a thing in honing your skill. I think spending time, because I think that's probably one of the reasons why you regret not switching quickly, is spending time to hone the skill that's relevant to you. Going here and there
Yes.
actually is relevant because, like you said, data science is helping you still use it, and also your front
Mhm.
end skills find relevance in the work that you're doing. So all those old experiences are never for granted. They are never a waste of time. But I think it's having that honest conversation with yourself early to say, doing this for this is costing me. It's costing me my health. It's costing me my time. It's costing me my body, because there are some things you can just never get back. When you burn out, it takes a while to find yourself, to get yourself back, to feel like a human being again, to deliver at the level that you used to deliver at. And that recovery
Exactly.
time, you're losing something in that recovery time. And so it's better to catch yourself very early to say you are going down a route because of money. And a bit, yes, it's situations are usually that things are really expensive everywhere. It's just, let's not have that conversation. But I think also looking after ourselves and making decisions with all these factors in mind is quite important, even from the job. So UI UX, I think from what you have said, getting into it, from what I understand, getting into it is not, you don't really need a tough technical background. From what I understand, I can come from my background in humanities, in French, in arts, whatever. And if I am able to pick up certain skills, I can get into UI UX. Now, we're also having this conversation because we plan to share this thing in one way or another with secondary school students. What do you think is valuable for them at their level in SS1, SS2, SS3 to hold on to tight if they want to get into UI UX later in life? And then also, what do you think is important for early career people to sort of hold on to or to think deeply more about if they want to get UI UX?
Okay. So I would say here's a few things to note. It will require time. In fact, it will require more time now than it did before to enter UI UX as a skill professional. So it's a big irony. With the availability of materials, the availability of courses, all that, even AI, UI UX has never been more easier to learn. Product design has never been more easier. You do it in a day if you wanted to, like be practicing UI UX person, not mentally, like not studying
Yeah.
now, but like if okay, you type in here, I want to be UI UX designer today. It's to give you, okay, these are the things you can do, and then you can just go out there and say, okay, fine, I built this, I'm a UI UX designer. You might not be one, you don't have the discipline, like you don't have the theoretical discipline, the studies and all that for it, but you can on some level recreate some practical works. You can call yourself a designer, but so it has never been more easier to be a designer, but it has never been more harder to work as a designer, because now you're not just competing against beginner designers, that the people that are learning UI UX design with you, you're also
Yeah.
competing with people in the industry who now have to change, or who have been forced to, like who had to change as they were going on, who were forced to change because they were laid off or something. And these are like senior talents from like even fan companies or big companies out there like Spotify, or these billion-dollar companies. And not competing with them on getting the good jobs that are available out there. And then you're also competing with AI too, because now teams where that demanded 10 designers demand 5 designers now, and then they augment in 5 with AI in
Mm.
workflows and all that. So like um the jobs are still there. Yes, the jobs haven't disappeared. I'm not saying UI UX is obsolete. No, that's not it. We're saying now you really need to put in the work in terms of studying, in terms of proving your skill, and then being in terms of proving your creativity as well. That you are a very creative designer, you are a skilled designer, you understand the craft, you understand the process, things like that. You have to prove that now more than ever before to get the work done. That's one. Two, and this is a personal irony for me, it's that forget the money.
That's a big guy coming from you. Oh, go on.
So yes, I'd like to say economics and all that. People will think if I just got saying the transition for the money, he started seeing the money 1 month in. No, I started seeing the money like over 6 months later, at least 6 months later.
6 months.
So at least
Now you
like
waited.
because I imagine that data science would have taken me longer. That was my projection. For other people, it was very different. But when I looked at data science, I was like, oh, more this course could pay me well, oh, but I need the money now. So that was my transition. So the thing is, I felt data design would take a lot longer than that. Even
Yeah.
the 6 months to a year that front end and UI UX took me, it was longer than I projected. It was it was a lot longer than I projected. I projected maybe like 3 months in, I would start seeing the money. Oh my, shock me, everywhere blow. So that was it. So what I usually advise people who are interested in learning, I tell them, forget the money, learn the skill, the money will find you. Which also references the first point I made, and that is prove your craft, prove your knowledge, prove your skill, prove your creativity, the money will find you. So if you can spend this amount of time, like dedicate this amount of time, even if it's an
Yeah.
hour,
Yeah.
just grinding at it
Yeah.
is a reward. That's it.
It's so hard because I think we are so super connected by the internet. A lot of a lot of things that are put on the internet are good stuff, right? People don't really put their processes on the internet, and the internet is not fashioned in a way that you see the process, because the process is not the content. The process of a beginner is usually not the content that gets the most attraction. So most times you see finally stumble on people's accounts when they've blown. So that backlog of the years and the times it takes you to put in the effort, the seeds, do the hustle, for lack of better terms, you don't see. So by the time
Yeah.
the blow comes out, everybody's thinking, oh, it's that fast. And it's like, no, it's not that fast for everybody. You have to pay your
It
dues. You have
doesn't
to pay.
exist.
Yes, the economy is pressing all of us, but the reality is it do take time. It do take time. Okay, two more questions before we leave. One is using AI to make your craft better. And then want to talk on remote work, the aspect of discipline specifically. I think we've touched on that. Just rapidly, like a small snippet on how you can use AI as a UI UX designer to make your craft faster as well. Because we're coming to the age of the most successful professionals are people who are able to work with AI, not 100% disregard it and neither 100% give it your work to do. But as a UI UX designer, what does using AI side by side as a colleague, for lack of better terms, to do your work well, what does that look like?
So this is an interesting question, and it's one I am still answering for myself. I have an answer to give, but it's one that is still being formed
Oh,
by my
shape.
process as a designer. Because when AI first came out, I was like this is another hype thing that's coming out. My job going where? Where's my job going to? So that was like my first impression when like the first ever unveiling of ChatGPT came out. And it has grown a lot since then.
Yeah.
That now would have no choice but to actually acknowledge its use, its capabilities, its capacity, and its use for work, for speeding up the process and all that. So how I integrate it into my process, and this took a lot of introspection on my part, was I made it a thinking partner. So I realized that AI doesn't mind doing all the work for you. And that is the most non-professional or early professional tech people utilize AI for technical tasks. So a professional person would say, I want to build this app, and then the AI handles everything from A to Z. As long as you have the tokens to pump in, you will get what you're looking for. It might not be the best thing, but it will give you what you asked for, the way you asked it for, because it's garbage in, garbage out. For a technical professional, we have to think of things a bit differently, because just because the AI can do it doesn't mean the AI should do it. And just because the AI can do it in that way doesn't mean it's doing it the best way. So then there's also this shock of, oh my God, this thing can do everything I can do. Am I obsolete? Like I'm just feeding the prompts like the way a non-technical person will feed these prompts, and I'm getting the same results a non-technical person will get. I'm in trouble. So there was that, in fact, for me, that panic was very strong at the point. It subconsciously rewired my brain so much that I distanced myself from here. I said I must prove myself at a point. And then I thank God I saw the light. So I found ways to slowly integrate it into my process. So what I do now specifically when I'm working with AI on anything, I won't publish an article today on something I've been passing on ideas with AI for, and I'm still going to publish my articles on that. It's I tell it, you are a thinking partner. You are not doing the job. You are not in the driver's seat. I am in the driver's seat. I'm bouncing my ideas off you. Tell me what you think. Am I the right direction?
Yeah.
Did I account for all the variables? Is there anything I missed? Things like that. Now, so you imagine working with AI like this. You still imagine working with a group of like 5, 6 humans on a team, and then you are asking them these questions, and different people are giving different inputs. The AI is doing just that, just faster, because the AI thinks faster than we do, and it's thinking of all those, like the collective thinking of all those human beings together. Like I said, a computer is garbage in, garbage out. So this is where a professional stands out from a non-professional, and an early professional stands out from like a mid-tier senior professional. And that's what you feed the AI, the instructions you give the AI. And that's how you know, okay, fine, know what I'm doing. I am in charge of this process. I can explain everything that is to be done and everything that was done by the system, as opposed to telling the system to build this entire thing for you. And you say, okay, fine, I did it, but then the AI built the whole thing for me. So in situations like that, you can't really defend anything, because what if there are hidden bugs? What if there are hidden things you didn't account for? What if there are errors you didn't see? Things like that, because you relied on the system to build that for you. So now that's why I'm taking it as a thinking partner, but still maintaining the driver's seat. Now, it's even now, I said this year, I can count the number of times I've touched Figma. In fact, I want to touch Figma less because of AI, honestly. But it's ironic, right? This was the tool that dominated design processes for years. Like since I touched UI UX design as a field, this was all I knew about design. Like this was the only tool I knew about design, Figma. And now it's what I'm tired of using. See, I'm like, I have this pixel push fatigue. Yeah, that's the word I'll use for it. Because now I can correctly prompt the system and brainstorm with it and then create these ideas. If you observe, that's what the industry is leaning into now. It's trying to say, okay, we need a way to design faster, and it's implemented faster. Now, that's why they're looking for designers that can immediately implement, designers that can get into the engineering.
So yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
So when you are
Yeah.
saying this thing you're saying now, so if you don't use Figma, what are you now using? Like, what are you
There are lots
prompting?
of what.
Give me like two
So
tools.
it's okay. So there's a myriad of tools out there. Specifically, I'll say for the thinking aspects, rate Claude the best. Personally, from use ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Gemini, which is one I even pay for. But then I would rate Claude the best in terms of product thinking and the way it has helped me like brainstorm projects. So that's why
Design.
I do all the thinking. I tell you, I thinking. Yes.
So what about
I don't
design?
tell you design. I just so for the design aspects, I will still say this is a bit nuanced. Some people would still enter Figma after they are done brainstorming in Claude and they have all the things they need to do. But maybe because I already have the engineering experience, and after observing the industry, I felt okay, the industry wants more rapid prototyping, functional prototyping, not just the look and feel now.
Okay.
And you can design that look and feel into your prototype straight. So
all right,
I just use Claude to build out my prototypes, like Claude Code, or maybe tools like Claude Code or Gemini CLI. I finished brainstorming. I know exactly what I need to do. I know what this product should look like. I know what this product should feel like. I know what all the design system tokens I need. The colors have been chosen. All those things have been documented to the T. I have read through and I say, okay, all the features are complete. Design system is complete. Brand is complete. All those things. Then I now feed it into the code engine and say, build this for me. Like build the front end of this for me. And then it builds it out for me. And I cannot demo it to the team and say, okay, this is what was in my head. This is how it looks. Now, the advantage of this is devs don't have to start looking at Figma and then translating it in code, because Claude generates code straight. It's a functional product that can just be plugged into whatever they are building.
Okay. And what is the code engine? Are you talking about an app called a code engine, or there are different apps that can serve as code engines?
So there are different apps that have code engines built in, like Framer, which basically looks like Figma. Like you can still design, do the whole UI thing if like that's your cup of tea. push the pixels and all that. You can do that in Framer and deploy it immediately. This was before the AI era. Framer is not a new tool. Framer Webflow, they've been around for a while, but
Okay.
they've implemented AI features to speed up these processes. And then new tools like Subframe or Pencil that have just come out. They aren't the industry standards, quote unquote, but they are gaining popularity because of
Yeah.
these rapid prototyping features that's designed straight into code, not design and then code.
Good.
So
Uh,
that's the advantage they have.
I mean, because I'm asking all these questions because I want somebody to be able to listen and then go and do, or listen, or at least see where they can start exploring from. Because we are in the age where, especially in tech careers, have AI has to be your thinking partner. You can no longer ignore
Yeah.
it. Some people can get around it, but not in tech, not in anything that is tech related. You have to be thinking with it. It has to be. People are literally augmenting their work using AI. So if you want to get into the workforce, you have to come ready to know how to use these things. So that's why I'm asking this question. So interesting
Yeah.
to actually see the evolution from Figma to now using research thinking partner, then feeding your code somewhere and then it's coming to life. And I'm sure there's probably another AI involved in putting it out there and sharing it with the team and also in UI
Yes.
UX. There's definitely like AI now attached at every stage, and that's actually interesting to see. Damilare, we have really, really run out of time, but there's something that I wanted us to touch on because I think is important, which is remote work. A lot of us in sub-Saharan Africa want to get jobs in the West, in Asia, in Europe, anywhere else. And that automatically means remote work. And there's also in this age and time when people are pushing for remote work. Now, as people who are early career people, what is something that we need to be wary of or we need to have in our minds when it comes to remote work? Because people think that it's just working from home, it should be easy. And I don't think we understand.
Okay, so this is a very personal question because I think you understand as well how much effort we've had to put in as individuals to even get the remote work in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So getting the remote work is one thing. That's showing proof of crafts, showing proof of skill,
Yeah.
all that publicly, building in public, demonstrating your skill in public. That's very important in this day and age because
Okay.
nobody knows who you are. You're dancing and you're locking the door in your room. No one will see your skill. No one will see your talent. Everyone says, okay, Arya Star now was discovered because she put her voice out on Instagram and then they saw her online and they was like, okay, we should sign this person. So that's one thing people should understand. Do it publicly and you will be seen publicly. You'll be engaged with publicly. It's the surest way I can think of to get the job. This isn't, yes, I can say I can think of, but this is also something a lot of people in the industry will say as well. Now, for keeping the job, there's a lot of things you need to have as an individual to be able to keep the job. Number one, you should be capable of meeting your deadlines. It's not necessarily a case of delivering a perfect job. It's just a case of making sure you do the work and you can meet up with the time required for, like you said, okay, when is this thing due? And then you say, okay, fine. It's due in 3 days. In 3 days, we should have something substantial. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily even have to be, we hope it's complete. We would like to say complete job, but it doesn't always have to be complete. It has to be a significant amount of work that is meaningful. They
Yeah.
say like 50% done. And then which leads me to my second point. If you can't, for some reason, continue that, we should be able to communicate that, okay,
Yes, it is.
this isn't feasible. I need an extension, things like that to, okay, explain that, okay, this is the situation on ground and these are changes, these are difficulties involved and we can rework something around because, you shouldn't be the bottleneck on your team. You are working with different people in different time zones, most likely. Everyone, like I had a job where I had to wake up by 5 a.m. to do my meetings because I was working with people in India and I was working with people in the US. So that was the easiest time to get everybody on the call, 5 a.m. Yeah. So imagine you wake up at 5 a.m. and then you not tell them, oh, sorry guys, I haven't finished this thing. And then the Indian person is already preparing for an afternoon. Your boss is preparing to go to bed. Like, how do you now want to start the planning? You are waking up at 5 a.m. You're still drowsy. Where do you even want to start the planning from? So you have to make sure that these things can be communicated properly. And then another thing, this is one thing my boss specifically insist on, and that's asynchronous operations. You are working in different time zones. It should be important that not everything has to be solved on a meeting. You can do your parts as an individual on your own time. Make sure you do it on your own time and thing. You don't have to wait for meetings to bring things up, things like that. So those are some very important factors. People relations is good because no matter how good you are, if you are not really liked by your team, it would affect the way you are viewed, and people will want to work less with you if you are not that cheerful a person. So being an around people person helps. Yes,
Yeah.
being relatable, being able to connect, being able to socialize with your team, that helps.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think that's helpful. I think one of the first three things you said, just I think they hover around the idea of discipline, self-discipline. Independent work comes from self-discipline, the ability to kind of let yourself know I need to do this. So I need to put everything aside and focus on this. And sometimes it's quite hard at the very beginning. And also there are the factors like infrastructure deficits where we have power issues, some countries light issues, transportation. It's all quite foggy, but these are things you have to deal with and you have to build systems in place to deal with. I remember when I used to work remotely in Abuja, we didn't have office. My boss said there's no office, you're on your own. And so when there will be no lights, luckily for me, I had a friend who I could go to her office and I'll see that. So there were weeks where I didn't even work from my house. It's that place that I want to work from. I just used to know that these people did not give us light. Let's just carry our laptop. You see me on my laptop in Abuja, I'll be running because my laptop has died. I'll be like, "Are you in the office? I need to come and do something." And so it's quite, yeah, it's quite,
Exactly.
these are the systems we need to put in place to make it work. Damilare, thank you very much
Wait.
for spending Saturday afternoon with us geeking out about UX. I hope it was relevant to you. And I hope
Uh,
that, yeah, I'm happy to hear that there's a lot of stuff that we didn't get to cover. It's just so amazing how much 1 hour, 30 minutes is actually not a lot of time. But I think anyone interested in this field, it would be interesting for them to, what is one thing, just one thing that you think anybody interested in UI UX should on their own go and explore? So it could be progression, it could be what's happening in the world, it could be where the direction of where the field is going to. What's one thing you think they should actually go and explore on their own?
So I would say you should observe. I can't really think of one thing specific. Honestly, there's a lot. Can I make it two things? Two very quick things.
Two quick. Yes, two quick.
Okay, so the first one will be the fundamentals, and my boss really hands on this. So
Okay.
he says if you don't understand the fundamentals, if you don't understand the principles of design, the laws of UX, all that, you don't really know what you're doing, even if you're like building our AI and all that. Even if you
Yeah.
can copy these that you've seen online and you can make them look good and all that, you don't still know what you're doing. And so you're not really a designer, you're just someone that can use design tools. So fundamentals are very important. The
Yeah.
thinking is also a fundamental skill. It's honed, it is learned, it is practiced along with theory as well. So the fundamentals are important. The second thing, which is one thing I know a lot of designers, it helps a lot of designers stand out, is understanding the business.
Mm.
So you don't have to like go and do a biz admin degree or something, but you should be able to understand the business. And what is the business? So sorry, I think business even understates it. You should understand systems. Yes. Because when you understand systems, you understand the way people operate in these systems, the way people behave, the way people think, why people do certain things they do. All that is involved in the systems they operate in. So if you understand the system they operate in, you can design for it, you can break it or make it, modify it, manipulate it, anything you want to do. So that's one thing I will encourage designers.
Understand the systems in which you design for. I think the fundamentals they give him, but that understanding the systems in which you design for is so critical. I think we stomp over that a lot of times because it's design, but you got to understand what you are designing for. Very important.
Exactly.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to this episode. I hope you found that useful. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.